is turning.
I'm alright, cause I'm okay. Doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen, I have something to say.
Is turning.
I'm alright, cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning from Grandpa Dennis's Turning. Hello, my name is Dennis Pervensky, and welcome to Grandpa Dennis's Woodturning studio. Doug and Betty commissioned me to make 2 cremation urns. It's part of their pre-planning process. I'll make both pieces complementary but unique. One will be sky blue and one will be royal blue. The size will be the same for each, but the shape will be slightly different. That's the plan. Let's see how it's going to work out. This is the blueprint of how the shape is going to generally be for both of them. I'll do slight variations in that shape so that each one will be rather unique. This is the set of brass rings that will be used to attach the lid to the body. These are specially made for vessels like this. Rather than turn the urns out of one solid piece of burled wood, I've chosen to cut the burl pieces and place them into a bucket, fill the bucket with resin, and therefore have those colors I was mentioning. I believe that when you mix the epoxy with the burl, you get a more unique type of look, something that's a little more artistic. These are the burls I'm going to be using for the his and her cremation urns. They have to somehow fit into this pot. I think I'll be able to get enough out of this one for one of the urns and enough out of this for the other. But I'm going to have to cut them into pieces in order to fit them in. That's the next step. I will be using my battery-powered chainsaw to do most of the cutting. They are quite awkward, so it'll be difficult to do it on a bandsaw. Unfortunately, I didn't have the camera turned on, but this was really tough to do. This isn't the most powerful chainsaw, and this is some of the hardest wood. But I managed to get through and cut right through into 2 pieces. I've decided to take the first 2 pieces and cut them on the bandsaw down the center so they split open a bit more, and that'll give me more of a river of epoxy. Before I get started with the resin pour, I just got something to say. I know stuff about wood turning. My wife doesn't know anything about that. My wife knows something about laundry, and I don't know anything about that. So, note to self, when you've got food stains on your t-shirt, don't put the liquid Tide detergent right on the food stain and throw it in the wash, because, well, this is what happens. Now, the key to all of that is don't get food stains on your t-shirt. Is going to be Blue Laguna, filled with the pieces of burl, and I've got small little pieces scattered throughout to fill up space. Hopefully that's going to look good once I start turning it. I've got my gloves on. I've got a fancy respirator just to be on the safe side with the fumes. Most of the processes used for these urns was basically the same for each one. Rather than show the steps twice, I interchanged the clips between the two urns. It's amazing how much these pieces of wood float. I've got a piece of plywood cut out for here, and I'll put some weights on it and tape it down so that it doesn't float up. But in the meantime, I'm going to put it in the vacuum chamber the way it is, even with those pieces floating up, because I want to get the air out of the resin. I put it into the vacuum chamber now. It's going to suck all the air out of the resin and help maybe get some more air out of some of the wood as well. That's going to take about an hour in there. As the bubbles come up, they can overflow the pail, so I'll have to turn the vacuum down and then up again and keep cycling that until there's not as much air bubbles. I'm not sure technically how this works. My theory is the vacuum is sucking the air out of not only the resin, but out of the wood pores as well. When I've got the vacuum on, the bubbles start coming up. The air comes out and it's formed bubbles. When I release the vacuum, the bubbles all dissipate, and I think what happens, this is my theory, is when the air comes out of the resin or out of the wood, when you shut the vacuum off, you've actually created a little vacuum in there and it sucks the liquid back in. What often happens after an hour or so in the pot, I have to add some more resin in there because the air in the resin has dissipated and the volume is less, and it's soaked into the wood. So again, the volume is less. When I put it into the pressure pot, a similar process happens, and after a day in the pressure pot, I might have to add a little bit more resin as well. Now it's taking longer for the bubbles to get to the top of the pail that's inside. That means there's less air in there now. Well, it was easier getting this out of the pail than taking the plywood off. So, I put this on the scale, 33.2 pounds. That's a little bit lighter. That's 2 pounds lighter, or 3 pounds lighter than the first urn. So, this is called Rainbow Blue. It's a deeper and darker blue than the first urn. I'm going to find the centers, put her on the lathe. I have my 36-pound, 4-ounce blank put on between centers. I want to true up this edge so that I could put my glue block on that. This is the light blue urn, and I glued a piece of oak onto the bottom of the blank, attached a faceplate to the oak, and moved it to the headstock. Now it's time to true up the blank and start shaping the urn. Time for a change in plans. I'm noticing that there's not as much wood coming through in here, and it's mostly resin. There's more wood on this side. I think I'm going to change this around and put this as the bottom and this as the top. So I'm going to true up this, get another faceplate with another glue block, and while this is suspended on this faceplate, I'll bring the other one up and glue it on, and then tomorrow I can reverse it. That's the plan. That's the change in plans. I used 2-hour epoxy to glue the block onto the new bottom, and I left it overnight to fully cure. Now I've reversed it to cut off the old glue block. I've got the glue block and faceplate reversed now. So I'm going to go 1/3 down. It's 3.5 inches. That's going to be the thickest part of the urn. And from here, I'll go down into where the opening will be. And from here, I'm going to go down to the base. Now the shaping can occur. I use mainly a carbide cutter due to the hardness of the resin, but I also use standard gouges when there are spots of more burl than resin. I have a special tool that follows the shape of my blueprint that I showed at the beginning. I use this to check the piece as I continue to refine the shape of the urn. This is the mess that results from turning resin. The shavings are also statically charged and stick to everything, making cleanup difficult. This is my steady rest. This is essential when you're hollowing out large pieces like this, or when you're doing coring. The idea behind it is these rollers fit against the piece and keep any vibration from happening or wobbles if it's not connected to your headstock well enough. These are bearings and wheels from a skateboard, and they're very smooth. This bolt is drilled and tapped into the circle, and that is lowered onto the piece. I'll put this in position now. I'm positioning it in such a way that the rollers hit on the highest part, and you want that relatively flat, otherwise it might start to try and creep down or creep up the piece. All right, this is going to work. Now, first thing is to bring the tailstock up, put in a large enough bit to hollow this out. Here's the capture system set up on my lathe. I've got the 1-inch rod inside. And I've got the cutter. I've got the cutter installed. I've got this tool rest set so that that cutting tip is exactly 13 inches from the bed to the tip of the tool. The weight of the tool, and this rod does the capturing, sits down on it. Well, let's see how it works. For a more detailed description of how the steady rest and the capture boring bar were made and used, I have made full-length videos on them. Go to my YouTube channel, Grandpa Dennis Woodturning, to see them. One thing of note, when you're down here, like so, you don't want to get a finger caught in here or inside there. That's not going to be very good for you. Not that I've ever done that many times, but you want to be cautious and careful. Generally, the rule of thumb is you hollow out the front part as best you can and work your way to the back. The reason for that is you want more mass to remain on the back and give you a more solid, vibration-free turning. Once you get this front part hollowed out, that's it. You leave it alone and you keep working back. The other thing is you want to hollow out around the middle here enough room for more shavings. That means you'd have less stopping and cleaning. I use a triple E buffing compound on a buffing wheel to remove some of the real small scratches on the resin parts. The finish I use is 1/3 boiled linseed oil, 1/3 pure tung oil, and 1/3 polyurethane. The piece is saturated with the oil, then the excess is rubbed off and dried overnight. Then it's repeated several times with more buffing between coats. This takes many days to get the finish I want. This is the small 4-inch casting that I made. I'm going to be turning this into the lid for the first urn. This is the process I use for fitting the bronze threaded insert. It's epoxied into place on both the lid and the body. I'm now installing my vacuum chuck, which holds the lid to the lathe simply with vacuum suction. The tailstock is brought up for added support and insurance. With the lid attached, I can do the final touch-up, making a nice transition between the lid and the body. I'm sure the first thing you want to notice is I've got a new t-shirt. Hooray! Here are the two completed urns. Both the lids can screw on and off. I think they turned out marvelous. And I got something to say. There's an old saying around here that use your money, enjoy all of the good things you have in life, because at the end of the day, you can't take it with you. However, Doug and Betty have made a wise choice. They now have these two gorgeous pieces of art to sit in their house and for them to enjoy. And when the day comes, they can take them with them. I hope you've enjoyed this video on how these two urns were made. I enjoyed making these two urns. It was a great project. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell when you do that, because you can get notified when my next video comes out. It's also helpful for me if you can hit the like button and add a comment. What do you guys think about these? As well, take a look at my YouTube channel, Grandpa Dennis Woodturning. I've got over a dozen videos on there on various topics and on various projects. Until the next time, keep turning.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. Doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen, I have something to say.
Grandpa Dennis is turning.
I'm alright, 'cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning, for Grandpa Dennis is turning.